Good afternoon. My name's Samantha Carr. Today I'll be presenting about dyslexia. So getting to know what is dyslexia. It's a language-related learning condition with a neurological foundation. It impacts reading, writing, understanding, impairs skills associated with accurate and fluid reading and comprehension. It's not a general impairment in language. It's a very localized deficiency in a certain part of the brain. It's recognized as a specific learning disability, and students are protected by the Disability Discrimination Act and the Disability Standards for Education. Dyslexia is quite common. It's currently estimated to impact about 10% of the Australian population. It is the most common SPLD in Australia. 80% of children with an SPLD have dyslexia. And more commonly, it's diagnosed in boys. They tend to be more open to showing their frustrations in the classroom. Girls tend to sort of try and be invisible, so they go less diagnosed. However, the actual prevalence in the disorder is identical in both sexes, so educators need to be looking out for both. The importance of identification. It's essential that we get on this and diagnose them if possible, as their self-esteem can be critically impacted during this time. If a child is left feeling like a failure or wondering what is wrong with them in class, that's when they're going to start having self-doubt. That's when they're going to become disengaged in school. We don't want to get on that spiral. We want to just stop and intervene as soon as possible, as dyslexia is not something a child will simply outgrow. Their brain's always going to process information differently. And so if we can empower the child by telling them that you just learn differently and here's how we can help you learn, that can be really empowering for them, doing that as soon as possible, as young as possible. Learning to read is not a privilege, it's a basic human right. All students deserve to have the best possible education, regardless of their location, gender, disability, social status, or culture. Academic characteristics to look out for include trouble processing phonological information, difficulty separating words into smaller sections or syllables, frequently relying on illustrations or making guesses to comprehend text. The student may omit words or accidentally add or modify existing words. They may have limited sight word knowledge and difficulty learning new words, as well as difficulty decoding, blending, and they may read slowly or uncertainly. Sometimes they may have difficulty with speech, might struggle to find the right words. Alternatively, they may thrive with their speech. Both of these are key markers. And they may also have trouble with working memory, organization, and or time management. Behavioral characteristics to look out for. Usually students will have a reduced tolerance for reading and writing independently. During this time, they may cause disruptions, stare off into space, or struggle to be quiet when required. They may avoid situations reading out loud in class, even if the child's otherwise quite outgoing. And they'll just have a general overall lack of interest, or at least it'll seem, in reading and writing. And this is mostly due to just the fear of being recognized by their peers. Sometimes some students might be easily frustrated in the classroom. They may be prone to physical or verbal outbursts. They may use distraction techniques like being the class clown or generally just chatty. They may not do their homework. They may refuse to be involved in certain parts of class, or they may be very quiet and withdrawn. So the formal diagnosis, well, it's really important to get that formal diagnosis happening, as it's beneficial to the child in accessing the support that they'll need throughout their school and their life. If a teacher suspects a child may have dyslexia, they cannot formally diagnose them. They need to talk with school leadership and the child's family to get the child referred to an outside service, such as Educational Assessments Australia or the Australian Dyslexic Association. Regardless of whether that formal diagnosis is made, schools are still legally responsible for providing that best case education. So regardless, the teacher will still be supporting the child. Overall, schools are encouraged to administer a valid screening for dyslexia prior to grade 3 to catch students flying under the radar. This is because early intervention is key to improving the students' abilities. Post-diagnosis. So after a child's been diagnosed with dyslexia or they've come to you with dyslexia, it's important that teachers do their research, stay up to date. They need to work with the family, the specialists, the school, involve everyone so everyone's on the same page. The teacher will then need to critically reflect on their resources, their unit plans, come at it again with a new approach to remove the barriers for someone with dyslexia. And they need to work with the child to figure out what exactly is the child's strengths, what exactly does the child struggle with, how can you help this particular individual child. So one example of a way to structure that is to look at the tiered support model, which offers a scaffold of various types of whole class support, as well as small group and individualized. Here we've got an example of the RTI. It's the most common form of tiered approach, and it shows the multiple levels of support and how the percentage of students that they will be helping. So tier one supports. So examples of tier one supports, they apply to the whole class. They're universally beneficial to most learners. You can use EDI, which is explicit direct instruction, to make the instructions very clear, as students sometimes get confused with long lists of steps. GIR is also good to model and then working with a partner and then going on independently. So those students can really benefit from that. Also providing information in formats other than written form alone, i.e. visual, videos, tactile. Here's an example of some tier ones. Audiobooks could be brought in as an option during independent reading. This would be allowing those students that can't read independently to access the audiobook, and they get to practice. They're using that time wisely. There's another example down the bottom, print and glue. To stop the time wasted when students are having trouble copying information down from the board, i.e. with homework reminders. The teacher could simply apply a whole class approach where they just have these printed out little post-it notes. The students just glue them in their books. Easy, supports everyone, particularly those students with dyslexia, but it does benefit everyone in the class. Tier 2 supports. These are for around 10 to 15% of the population, and they are delivered to just them. So that can be one-on-one support, that could be assistive technologies like speech to text, small group intervention, mentor support, and more time given for tests, exams, or the option to give things orally instead of written. An example of that would be a small daily intervention group using the multisensory approach to literacy, in which students can have the opportunity to engage with literacy through sensory experiences. Below, we've got the sand tray they're writing in, you've got sight word twister, and you've got hopscotch where they stomp out the words. Tier 3 supports. This is for around 5% of the student population, and they could be things such as in more breakout room time, intervention groups, working one-on-one with educators, adjusted materials so they can still access the same curriculum, mentor support, and IEPs, independent goals. These are two examples of independent, individualized learning. So we've got a child visiting a mentor every day, a child meeting one-on-one with the teacher to review their daily goals, and a child using a visual timetable and a first then to work towards their own individual goals and reward system. Thanks so much for listening. Here's my reference list. Thank you.